Hi, this is Nathan Crane, founder of the Panacea Community and executive producer of Unify Fest, and I'm super happy you're joining us today. This summit is focused on helping you build new skills and learn key insights for living more self-sustained, inspired, and prepared for co-creating the new world of sustainable living. And today I'm thrilled to have our dear friend and colleague, Dr. Gabriel Cousens, joining us for the second annual Self-Reliance Summit. Gabriel Cousens is the author of 12 internationally acclaimed books, including Conscious Eating and Spiritual Nutrition, known worldwide as a spiritual teacher and the leading expert in raw, live, plant-sourced nutrition. Dr. Cousens functions as a holistic physician, psychiatrist, family therapist, and cutting-edge researcher on healing diabetes naturally. His multicultural background as an ordained rabbi, an acknowledged yogi, and a 4-year Native American Sundancer adds insights to his whole person enlightenment teachings. Gabriel, it's always an honor to be spending quality time with you. Thanks for joining us.
Hey man, it's great, and I'm very, very happy to be participating in this conference. I'm really happy. You know, this has been a passion of mine since the mid-'70s. You know, we lived off the land, off the grid entirely from 1976 to 1979. Until I went off to India. We had our own solar systems. We lived on batteries. You know, we completely lived the lifestyle back in the mid-'70s. So it's something it's not a new idea to me. You know, it's just our way of life. The sustainable thing. You know? That's
what I love about where you're coming from, is that deep perspective of experience of both Western, Eastern, and off-the-grid living. You bring so much to the table, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, and we're almost off the grid here at the Tree of Life. We're all solar. That's everything. Every well, everything. It's all solar. And we're working on the water collection part of it is the next step, which is all kind of exciting. And hopefully to be building 36 casitas that will be totally spiritual, ecological, in living harmony. I want to go back and just share with people a little bit my motivation as I see it, because the truth is there's nothing new under the sun. Okay? I didn't think about ecology. I didn't make it up. So I'm just going to want to read something from the Deuteronomy 23:13 through 15, and it really speaks to the problem we face today. Thou shalt have a place outside the military camp where thou shalt go forth, and thou shalt have a spade among thy weapons, and it shall be when thou sittest down outside that thou shalt dig therefore with, and shalt turn back and cover that which cometh from me. In other words, don't defecate in the public commons. That's a pretty important spiritual principle, okay? Our air, our earth, our water, you know, when we pollute it, we're defecating in the public commons.
Right.
So that's not a new principle, okay? And that's what we're really talking about. How do we live in a way that doesn't defecate in the public commons? Now, the culture of death, there's two cultures that are going on today, and you're aware of it. Culture of death sees nature as something to be exploited. The culture of life and liberation sees that nature is something to become in harmony with as our natural state. Because we always were in harmony. We've lost that harmony. The sustainable movement in the bigger picture is to come back in the ultimate harmony in the picture. That's how I see the sustainable movement. And basically the battle that's going on is, are we going to let the culture of death, who basically says, we will put wealth, our wealth, before your health. Okay, those are the issues.
Right.
And that's what the battle truly is about in the big picture. Now that's a key principle that I've been working on for a long time. Now, the Gaia Principle which we think is some kind of new thing from NASA, is a very, very old teaching. It's a Kabbalistic teaching. And what does it say? Well, NASA discovered, oh, it's a living planet. Oh, guess what? It's one organism. Guess what? We're part of that living organism. Okay, that's the Gaia Principle, right? But that's truly the ancient Essene teachings, that we are one with the living planet. We're not stewards. That keeps us separate. We're one with the living planet. Now that's really profound. That's the basic Essene ancient teachings. And the work is to come back in harmony, in unity between humanity and nature. And inherent in that, of course, is humanity, nature, and God is in nature as a hand is in a glove. That's the biblical teaching, the Essene teaching. It's like, hey, we can't separate that. And nature isn't just some physical thing for us to exploit and sell off. Okay, it just isn't.
Right,
so,
right. It reminds me too of some really profound recent experiences I've had. As you know, I think as you become closer to the earth, and you tend to have more love and compassion for the earth, the plants, the animals, the waters, etc. You know, you can start to put it on kind of an idealistic relationship, and also I know the scriptures teach, you know, do not put the earth as an idol. Do not, praise and worship the earth, because what
right.
we're really doing is, we're experiencing that highest level of love and energy from the Creator, from the divine, from God, through nature, through the plants, through the animals, through the waters, through the rain. So it's like I feel myself going from this place of really cherishing the earth, the living beings of the earth, to cherishing God representing, coming through those living beings of the earth. And it's a different experience. It's a very wholesome experience.
Yeah. And, from a Native American point of view, I go back to Chief Seattle, 1854. The earth is your mother.
Right.
You're not supposed to pollute it. And really, he was warning the President of the United States, really don't pollute it, because it will, in the end, kill you. That's basically what he said. You're going to pollute it, you're going to create your own destruction.
Right.
So, the Native Americans clearly understand. That's why I love the Native American tradition that way. It's like, yeah, Earth is our mother. We're one with the living mother. We have to honor that. So those are the fundamentals of how I'm, in a sense, motivated to think about it. And so that's why I don't see myself as a steward. I'm making that distinction. I'm one with the living planet. I'm one. This is the trouble with humanity. We're one strand in the web of life. We're just one strand. And if we see ourselves as part of the whole web, as a strand in the whole web, we have a much different perspective of what we're doing. Okay, so kind of that's how I am looking at it, and then I translate it down into a lot of the questions that people are talking about, sustainable living. Okay, but to me, sustainable living really means nourishing your soul. So how do we live on the planet in a way that nourishes and uplifts our soul, and the soul of all those around us, and the souls of all the animals and the plants? So how do we do that? And that's the key. So how do we live in a way that uplifts the web of life on the planet?
It's a powerful, important question, because I think if we're coming from that perspective of really wanting to nourish our soul, our spiritual experience first, then naturally our affinity and our affection for the planet, for all living beings, comes automatically. And then we don't want to destroy this beautiful place that we live on, and we start looking at ways to live more in harmony with the planet. So I think that's such an important, kind of foundation to come from. And so you bring that, I mean, you bring a lot of perspective to this conversation, but also from the Essene path, the Essene teachings, and you talk about the Essene Sevenfold path, or Essene Sevenfold Peace. What is that? What does that look like?
It's in the big picture, it's how to live in a way that brings peace with every aspect of our life. So peace with our own personal body. And let me explain into ecology. From an ecological point of view, if we pollute the living planet, we end up polluting ourselves. Look around today. The average child born today in the United States has 287 toxic chemicals in its blood. 217 are neurotransmitter disruptors. 180 are carcinogens. And we look around and say, oh my gosh, the chief cause of death among high school kids besides suicide is cancer. Totally unnatural. But it's the statement, isn't it? It's the statement is, if you're going to pollute yourself, if you're going to pollute the planet, you will pollute yourself. And what we're looking at is our children being born already polluted. That's huge. That's huge in the big picture. As just one example of what we're facing. Okay, now the second is peace with the mind, which is really about meditating, creating quiet mind. Now, when you have a quiet mind and a quiet body, a body that's healthy, then we start to have peace with the family. And that's about the whole teaching of sacred relations. How do we come together in relationship to, in a sense, help each other reach our highest potential? Okay, as God beings. And when you talk about sacred relationship with the living planet, it's the same thing. How do we live with the planet in a way that elevates the living planet and ourselves? Okay. The next is peace with the community. That's the social networks. And we see today there's a lot of chaos out there. Okay, because people don't understand the unity awareness. And the unity awareness, which is only peace with all the different peoples, is also unity with the living planet. Same principle being violated. The next is peace with all cultures. And I take the Native American approach as I extend it. So it's peace with the rock people. So the geology, fracking, all those things, it's a violation. From a Native American point of view, oil is the blood of the planet. You're sucking the blood of the plant. Not so good. Okay? The uranium, all the mining, that's the bones of the planet. So from Native American, this is a big problem. Okay? Second, peace with the plant world. And that's, again, what I'm going to call organic, veganic, gardening, which we teach here at the Tree of Life Foundation here in Patagonia. Then peace with the animal world. And of course, the biggest piece is being vegan, because animals know if you're vegan, you're at peace with them, relatively speaking. Okay, big deal. And then peace with the humans. Okay, so those are the four worlds. And Native American are actually, in the ancient Essene, they call it peace with the talking ones, Med-Debur. Okay, it's the same. The Essenes have the same thing. Peace with the animal world, peace with the plant world, what we call the sprouting ones in the Essene. Okay, and then peace with the planet. Okay, so that's the cultures, and then we have all the human cultures. Okay, which we're having trouble just, that's a big problem right now. Okay, okay, that then becomes peace with the ecology, which is obviously the topic here. And to me, that's living in a way with the living planet in harmony, between human and nature and God and nature, living in that way that creates ever-increasing harmony. The principle of harmony with nature is not some kind of new idea. This is the way people have been living for thousands of years. This is really not new. What's new is a culture of aberration where we see nature as a system to be exploited for our own wealth, okay,
Right.
rather than in harmony. That's what's new. But truly, peace between humanity and nature is the way people live. Every great civilization, there's a book called Topsoil and Civilization. I'm sure most people have heard of it. They make a very simple point. All the great nations who were reaching their pinnacles um, were in harmony with nature. And then as they moved out of harmony with nature, they fell. Okay? When they began to disrupt the topsoil, they fell. And the Mayan would be an example of that. But really, we look at all these leading cultures. At some point, they get arrogant. Their minds lose the natural harmony between humans and nature, and then it goes the wrong way. Now, in this country, because topsoil is the key to the whole thing, every civilization that doesn't pay attention to the topsoil gets destroyed. So 200 years ago, we had 21 inches of topsoil. Now we have 6 inches. 70% of our topsoil has really been lost in terms of its growth potential.
Is
So
that is
we're
that world you're talking worldwide?
no, well, these are U.S. measurements.
Okay, okay.
So I'll say to the U.S. I think that's safer, more accurate, because that's where they came from. Worldwide, it's pretty variable.
Right, but there's a lot of other countries that are obviously implementing the same kind of monoculture, stripping the
That's right.
land of its nutrients and so forth. So I'm sure that other countries are probably pretty close to that.
Yeah, they're following this bad example because you're looking at obviously, pan-natural national corporations, okay? The international corporations are doing this around the world. There's another culture that goes beyond America, okay? And they see, the living planet as something simply to be exploited for their own wealth. So these are fundamental. But the bottom line is every culture, every civilization that's no longer in harmony and starts to destroy the topsoil, as we are doing, falls. That's it. It's just, that's the rule. So that's what we're ignoring at this point. And moving back again with the ecological approach is key, because we have to bring humans back in line. Now, I make a distinction in my own lifestyle, okay, which is that because I see it that way, I naturally will do sustainable living. Not because I'm worried about resources or this, or that, or the other thing in those technical levels. It's just the spiritual way to live. In a Native American way, were they worried about, the climate? Were they worried about, resources? No, they were doing it for the real reason, which is to be in harmony with nature.
Right, right. Yeah, we find obviously, like in the prepping movement, for example, that as people become concerned with these challenges we're facing, they see kind of end of times coming, and they load up on ammunition and food and go bunker away somewhere in the mountains, waiting for the end of the world scenario. And while I understand that, because all of these things can be scary, at the same time, none of that is a sustainable solution. If you can't grow your own food, if you aren't living in community, if you don't have spiritual connection, then what's the point? It's like all of
Exactly. That's the point.
all of
That's
those
exactly
things.
the
All of those
idea.
things make us very fulfilled. It's like that spiritual connection, that community, the family, that being able to provide for ourselves. I mean, that's where real joy and fulfillment come from. So I love what you're saying about, you're doing it for the right reasons. I think that's one of the biggest messages of the Self-Reliance Summit, and encouraging people to be self-reliant. It's not just to be prepared for, the end of the world scenario and disaster scenarios. While, it's good to have backup food supplies, and it's good to have alternative water sources, etc. doing it for those reasons because it's the right thing to do. It's meaningful. It's good for yourself, good for your family, good for the planet. I think that's more of a sustainable solution.
Yes. If we aren't living in a way that's good for our soul, what are we doing?
Right.
And the truth is, who cares?
Right.
Because the point of being here is to evolve spiritually.
Right.
To me, the whole ecological thing, again, from the Essene point of view, is how do we relate to nature in a way that elevates us spiritually? Okay. And again, the Essenes saw, thousands of years ago, that we are a living planet. We are one with the living planet. And that natural harmony between humanity and nature God, is absolutely fundamental to who we are as human beings. Fundamental to our spiritual growth. And that's why the Essenes focus so much on the agriculture. And, I'm looking, they were all over the place, but I just got back from Qumran like 2 weeks ago. Okay? It's like, this is one heck of a place to have to grow things.
Mm.
And they did it. And even today, it's very productive. I'm really impressed. There's trees growing, there's date palms. It's like, whoa.
Low hot desert environment.
Well, remember, it's the lowest place on the planet.
Right.
It's
Right.
500, 540 meters below sea level. It's low and hot. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
It's the driest desert you've ever seen. So, but they did it. And how did they did it? Because they were in harmony. Okay. They put an emphasis that was really part of their spiritual practice. That's how I look at it.
Gabriel, can you take maybe a couple minutes and give everyone listening and watching a little bit of a background and foundation as to who the Essenes were and are, so that we have that kind of basis?
Sure. So the Essenes kind of emerged out of the prophets in Mount Carmel. I don't know, maybe 500, 600 BC. They trained Pythagoras, and he came down to live food, vegan, and enlightened. Okay, but they were really all over the Middle East. Damascus, which is in the news for different reasons than Essene Spiritual Center, and into Lake Mareotis in Egypt. They were a whole circle of that area, and they were also healers, which is part of the thing. And very agriculturally attuned. They grew their own food, they made their own clothes, and they lived very simply and closely with the land. They came out of the really part of the Torah tradition in the ways that I just mentioned. Really, as I say, don't pollute your common, don't pollute the public commons. They understood that. In fact, to go to the bathroom at Qumran, you had to walk about 1,000 yards. It took me a long time to figure out where they went to the bathroom. Now, I'm not joking. It's like, where's their system? And what it was is 1,000 yards away, kind of hidden, kind of a little bit into the mountains, there's this big kind of open field. And that's where they would go, to take care of that. So they kind of followed, go outside the camp if you're going to defecate.
Interesting.
Within the camp. Oh, it's trippy,
Wow.
And so they literally live that way. And we take that principle is don't defecate in the public commons. And that's exactly what's happening today. Air, water, earth, in a sense, the sunlight too, is seriously polluted between chemtrails and this and that. I mean, this is really very dark thing that's going on. It's not a small thing, and our movement, the sustainable movement, which links into the bigger picture, is about reversing that consciousness. But if we need to see it as consciousness, otherwise we're just talking, as we say, just your personal egoic little protection. To me, it's the bigger thing. So in the end, we're all living on the same planet. We're all going to suffer the same fate to a certain extent. And we can change that around. We can change that around.
Right.
And that to me is the meaning, bigger meaning, I call it spiritual ecology. Not just ecology, which is materialistic, spiritual ecology, where we're relating to God in the process. And that's very much Native Americans' way. And the Essenes were clearly, that's why, to me, they're similar. They live close to the land, in harmony with the land, and that was actually part of their, biblical way of life.
Right. I mean, that goes back. It's so amazing as you start researching different cultures. I mean, that goes back 6,000 years plus to the Indian Vedic times, and even before
Absolutely.
then. I mean, 11,000 years to like indigenous tribes here in New Mexico that
Yes.
we're living sustainably. The
And actually,
Hopi. It's amazing.
where I live on this land, the people are at least 10,000 years. History, we find stuff from 10,000 years ago.
Wow.
And they were living in that harmony. It's like this is the way people live. This is the normal, healthy way to live.
So what got us out of that? Out of that harmony? What was the trigger point, you think? What was that desire, that turning point where it was like, all right, because this is just recent, obviously. I mean, it's a very, in human history, it's a very recent, short amount of time that we haven't lived in harmony. So what do you think that corner was that triggered us to leave that harmonious living?
Yeah, well, I think reasonably going back to the Industrial Revolution, where there was a shift. See, why are we living? Is it to make money, or is it to evolve spiritually? And somewhere, and I'm not an expert on that, but we're theorizing, somewhere with the Industrial Revolution, the purpose of life was to make money, and people were seen as economic units. And the land was seen as an economic unit. So a whole world view emerged out of the culture of death, in which the land, the people, and the living planet were seen as an economic unit to be exploited.
They kind of did, I
So
mean, they did that back in Rome too, right? They did it in Rome, and they even did it back in Egypt to a certain extent. I mean,
yeah,
not to the level we did here, started in the United
right.
States, but I mean, wasn't there some form of that happening even back then?
To a certain extent, because they were enslaving people to do the pyramids and all that. Uh, yeah, but I think in modern times,
Mm-hmm.
I think the Industrial Revolution was a change in mindset and understanding.
It's when
You know,
people stopped growing their own food and providing for their own family and started to pay work in exchange for money to do that, right?
correct.
Yeah.
So all that, but there's a worldview. The worldview is people, animals, living planet is simply an economic unit to be exploited. So we relate to animals differently, relate to humans differently. We're not relating to humans as a spiritual unit to be evolved. So when we talk about the one world order, they don't see this as a spiritual thing. That's the thing. Like, how do we enslave humanity for our egoic benefit?
Right.
So
Right.
that's a shift in thinking. Now, the Illuminati started around 1550, okay, by the Jesuits. Okay, but my point is, so it's been around, not just prior to the Industrial Revolution, but I think the Industrial Revolution was a change where there's a mass consciousness shift.
Right.
Where actually people saw themselves as the point of life is to make money, not to know God. And that just causes a breakdown across the board. And so if we're going to repair it, we have to come back to basics. What's the point of life? To know God. What's the point of nature? To experience the dance of God in all creation, to become one with the living planet, which is close to being one with God. And we don't want to make nature, as you said earlier, we're not going to worship nature as God. Well, it's not what we're talking about. But nature is, as I said, in the mystical book of Bayer, it's a Kabbalistic book, it says the hand of God is in nature as the hand is in the glove. So obviously when we relate to nature in the right way, we get the taste of the divine in that experience.
Right. Right. So talking about solutions, talking about ways each of us can contribute to ecological peace. sustainable, spiritual peace, or you call it spiritual ecology even. What are some more practical ways people can really go out and contribute in a good way?
Right. So once we have the foundation of what we're doing, which is what we were just talking about, it's like what to do. So here we are at the Tree of Life Foundation in, Patagonia, Arizona, 4,000 feet up on a plateau. And we're all solar. We're going to be hopefully, off the grid. Every structure that we started building since '93 is straw bale, all organic, all natural. Okay, all our food is organic, veganic. Okay, food. So building materials are fundamental here. Your food. So we have our organic, veganic farming system. We're not totally there yet that we supply all our food, but I hope within a year we will be.
Nice.
So we're getting close to that. We're all solar. We filter our water. We've done some water catchment. We're nowhere near where we need to be. We only got 13 to 19 inches a year here, so water catchment's a big deal. It's just a little expensive. Okay, so we want water storage tanks, and they're not easy to build. If you do cement and have a little lining, it's still, a lot of money. Okay, more than we have at this moment. We will have it. I believe by the end of the year, we'll have really nice water catchment designs. And then from that, you're pretty much water independent. Just one of our roofs by our garden is going to give us, close to 80 to 100,000 gallons. Okay, we just got a grant. It's taken us years to line a pond. It's going to give us about, with a rubber lining, and so the water stays instead of goes into the soil. That's going to give us a few million cubic feet of water in reserve. So we're kind of like, it's not so easy. If we had more money, it'd be a little bit easier. But that's all part of the story too. I mean, anybody with lots of money can do whatever. But for most people, we are starting in a place where we don't have, endless money. So it's one step at a time. So I believe the one step at a time approach is key. I believe starting small is key. I believe, we're a small community here, but, your own homestead. But, and you said it earlier, community's key too. Because it's hard to do everything. So what I learned in the 70s, there was about 10 of us, okay? But it was really a lot of work, to be honest with you. To be totally off the grid was almost a full-time job, okay? It's like we had our garden, we had everything, totally. But it's like, well, now wait a second. My job is just to make a full-time job of being off the grid. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's a real issue. So when you work in a bigger community and you have different aspects, it stops being a full-time job and you can do the other things that you need to do. Now, what the Essenes did is they worked in the agriculture 4 hours a day. They did their prayers and spiritual work 4 hours a day. And then they did a little bit of socializing and so forth. So they kind of divided their days up in a certain way. And in a way, you need all of it. So if you're just doing sustainable living, that's not the whole picture. Because you're not being a kind of holistic full being. So to me, a little bit larger community where the energies can be shared in different ways and a little bit specialized, I think is important rather than doing individual homesteading. And it's really the way humanity is designed, like small little tribal type things.
Right.
So these are my ideas here.
Right, and that it's huge because let's say you have 5 or 10 people farming, right? And then you have, 5 or 10 people maybe making clothing from natural local material. Maybe you've got to trade some things with another local community nearby when you don't have enough. Maybe you've got 5 or 10 people working on the buildings. like you said, more specializing, but helping when other places need help. You get things done really fast that way if you have
That's right.
skilled people that are doing, working around the clock. Or even, I mean, I saw a statistic a while ago. I can't remember where it's from, but there was a study done on certain cultures that are still living, quite in harmony with the planet, growing their own food, that sort of thing. And as an established community, they don't spend more than a few hours a day, on their basic core survival needs: food, water, and shelter. So once you have your community established, if that's the case, using permaculture principles and water conservation and land regenerative principles, so you're not having to farm as much, because you're letting nature kind of do the work after you have it set up. Then 3 or 4 hours a day, working on the land, that gives you a lot of time to do other stuff, community stuff, dancing, prayer, meditation, art, creative experiences, traveling, whatever. I mean, that, to me, that's pretty exciting. But we spend almost all that time, in 9 to 5 jobs as a society, trying to make money to pay for these things to feed our families. It's so twisted and so backwards.
Yeah. When we first came to the land, we did a total permaculture. We invited the permaculture experts in. It's actually the most fascinating. It's like a whole book. They looked at every part of it. What's the water flow? What's the air flow? What's the soil energetics? And we got a total permaculture design for the whole land, which was really great.
Nice.
Which is part of it, because you do have to think it through.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the best way to do energy? Like we saw that wind wasn't going to work because we couldn't consistently get wind at 3 or 4 miles an hour all year round. So solar, particularly here in Arizona, is the best way to go. But there are all kinds of things, so it does take a lot of thinking to kind of get settled in with the big picture, and you do have to go one step at a time for the evolution, because we're started in 1993, so we're 23 years into it, and we're still nowhere near where we want to be. I'm just hoping this year we'll make the water breakthrough. We got the solar, we got a few things, and I'd love to see some better battery backup systems, because they're so expensive, as you probably know.
Mm-hmm.
So to be solar independent, you really have to have your own backup system.
Well, and a lot of the things you've been focusing on there too is more of in the search for sustainability, which you were a part of that documentary series. We had an entire episode on sustainable health, looking at the physical health of the human body from that viewfinder of sustainability, and obviously that's been one of the biggest areas of focus that you've specialized in over the years, is helping people to get healthy again, helping the body to be sustainable. And you're a living example of that, right? You travel all over the place, you speak all the time, you're teaching, you exercise, and I think you're in your 70s, right? And so obviously you're living.
73, and I'm consistently cracking 50 pull-ups in 2 sets, when I do it each week.
Yeah, and how much you do, and how engaged you are. So you're a living example of what you're teaching. But I think that's a good, huge, important focus that you've done over the years, is help people take back control of their health so that they can have a sustainable body.
It's fundamental, because you can't talk about a sustainable ecology, one, while you're eating meat, fish, chicken. I mean, that's antithetical to reality, right? And if your body isn't really healthy, because our bodies reflect the global ecology reflects our bodies. So when we're taking good care of our bodies, we're taking good care of the living planet. And if we aren't taking good care of the living planet, then we're affected also in our bodies. If we pollute the living planet, we pollute our bodies. So it's a battle, because a lot of people are not on the same page, right? So we do the best we can, but that is the relationship in the whole picture.
Maybe you can share three principles for, I know there's a lot, but for time, that people can take away, 3 principles for, sustainable health.
fundamental is you are what you eat, and what you eat affects your consciousness. So when you're not eating death, animals, meat, fish, chicken, dairy, you're not taking the energy of death into you, okay? Which is clearly associated with all kinds of degenerative diseases. So fundamental vegan and then a better, at least 80% live food is going to be the most, and it's got to be organic, the most healthy way to eat. When you eat that way, like a lot of your health problems go away over time. Now, if you want to fast track it, fine, I'll see you. We'll do herbal work. We'll do this. We'll do homeopathy. But you don't have to do that, okay? So it takes 2 years. Who cares? So if you just go on organic, veganic, 80% live food, you will naturally get healthy over a few years. And so to me, that's the number one thing that we can talk about in that level. The second thing for health is you have to have good water. Now we're hearing all the water issues, right? The lead in the water in Michigan, and so people have to gain control of their water, which means it has to be where you live, not in bottled water. Okay, so either you need a water distiller or RO filter. You have to control your water. Without that, who knows what's in the water these days? Even if it's your personal well, who knows what's polluting that well from, some agribusiness down the line. So control of your personal water is like the second most important thing we can do, extremely important. And then I'm going to put love. And they're not really separate here. But if you're doing this kind of with a grimace, you don't get it. It doesn't, energetically, it doesn't work. So I'm going to say serve God with love and joy. You got to be having a good time. If you're doing it because intellectually you think it's the right, but you're not enjoying it, it really diminishes your problem. I like living this way.
Right.
This is not a problem. I've been doing it, 40 years now, 45 years. It's like, this is fun for me. It's just the way it is. So I just enjoy it. I love it. And I enjoy the play of God in all of it. So without that, your health can never really be optimal. It could be functional, but not optimal. So I would say those are the three most important things. Well, I'm going to add the fourth, relationship. In all the longevity studies, people who are in relationship, and we talk sacred relationship of intimacy of two, but really a social network. The research clearly shows that people live in social networks do live longer. Those are the definitely longevity studies. So being part of a social network or being in a sacred relation are very fundamental for longevity, health, and quality of life. So I would say those are your four pieces.
And obviously,
sure.
And obviously, when you say social network, you're not talking about Facebook or Twitter or any of these things, right?
Your immediate small community. Your immediate small community.
Exactly.
Whether it's your your sacred relationship, it's your family, or it's your living immediate community. And seeing God in all of that. Those are the fundamentals that really do make a difference and make life worth living and make life fun. Because the idea is serve God with joy. I mean, come on. That's what we do. That's, to me, the most important thing in the big picture. Otherwise, what's the word? The operation was a success. The patient died. But the patient died. Technically, it was a success. Well, I'm interested in that. You've probably heard that before, that kind of statement. But
yeah,
it's like, I don't care if it's technically right. If the patient dies, it's still not doing it. So that's the big thing. Don't get so caught in the technical that we lose the human aspect, the love aspect, and the God aspect, because it's not really worth anything then.
Beautiful. Well, we've been talking with Dr. Gabriel Cousens of the Tree of Life Center and Tree of Life Foundation. This has been a very awesome, enlightening conversation as always. I appreciate you so much, Dr. Cousens. I want to share a few websites here with everyone tuning in. The first is drcousens.com. It's drcousens.com. There's links there to the various projects that you can get involved in, as well as the Tree of Life Center, the foundation, all the work they're doing around the world. And I encourage you to go check out the Tree of Life in Arizona. I've been there with my team. I think it's been a couple of years, 2 or 3 years now. Really a beautiful place. We got to stay there, got to be a part of doing some ceremony, eating the live organic raw food, having that full uplifting experience. It's really a beautiful place to retreat, heal, detox, cleanse. So take a look at Tree of Life Center and drcousens.com. Also, if you missed any of the interviews during the Self-Reliance Summit, go to the upgrade page. It's the selfreliancesummit.com/upgrade, and you can own all of these and watch them again and again, share them with friends and family. We want this information to get out to as many people as possible. So thank you for that.
I just want to interrupt. I'm sorry.
Yeah?
I want to invite everybody to come down. Part of the sustainability is teaching.
Yes.
We have classes in conscious eating. We have organic, veganic, week-long classes so people can master how to do organic, veganic. We have spiritual classes, meditation, so people get empowered. So part of our role, besides our own, is to teach as many people from around the world. So we've had people from 126 nations come. And so we're bringing the vegan message, I'm going to say the holistic vegan spiritual message to the world. We have 13 major programs around the world, and it's all going organic, vegan. It's pretty exciting. So that's part, to me, of the sustainability is spreading the word and the teachings. So I just kind of add that in there.
Exactly. No, it's a good point. And you obviously do an amazing job of that. And you're an incredible educator. And yeah, I do encourage everyone to go and take a class, go to the retreat, do ceremony, be a part of what's happening at Tree of Life. It's quite incredible. So, and finally, I want to invite everyone watching to come and join us for Unify Fest. Unify Fest is a 4-day transformational festival dedicated to unifying humanity, celebrating life, and leaving the land better than we found it. We have indigenous ceremonial leaders coming from around the world, uplifting amazing transformational music, yoga, tai chi, qigong, movement classes, hands-on workshops, building with adobe, basket weaving, herbal medicine making, and on and on. So come and join us for a super uplifting festival. It's called Unify Fest, and the website is unifyfest.com. Other than that, we love to hear from you, love to hear your feedback. Leave us your comments and questions, and again, share this with everyone you know. Dr. Cousens, it's always a pleasure, and I just want to thank you again for sharing your wisdom here with us.
Great, and I'm just so pleased to be able to support you with this work. I so appreciate what you're doing. So blessings to you, and may this continue to expand, and may everything you do be touched with success on all levels. Amen.
Aho. Thank you, brother. Thank you so much.
Good.
Okay, and we'll talk to everybody on the next interview during the Self-Reliance Summit. Take care.